Hey, it is 12 noon on Wednesday, which means it's time for this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. My name is John Christman. This show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. We're here every Wednesday, 12 noon Eastern Time, live to help you understand the technical side of the real estate industry. And today we're talking about a subject that everybody's interested in. It's money. But at the same time, talking about a topic that most people are terrified of, and it's math. So we're going to take what you love, money, and combine it with might be what you hate, math, or maybe what you just tolerate, math, to really combine these two together, because this is essential to you being able to increase your income, to multiply your money. You've got to know how to do the math, especially when you're new to real estate, or maybe you're just trying to take your real estate business to the next level. You want to know the math. You want to know the breakdown of a commission for a single sale, and then how many sales yields this much, but then you have your cost and so on and so forth. So that's what we're going to be breaking down today on this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. My name is John Christman. The show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate.
You are watching Ask the Instructor. Absorb the knowledge. Become the expert.
Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. My name is John Christman. This show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate, 12 noon every Wednesday. Hit that bell icon so you get notifications whenever it is that we go live, so you don't miss out on any of this content we drop every single day. So today we're talking about money, math. And this is always everybody's favorite type of math to do when it involves money. So let's talk about how a real estate professional earns money. A real estate professional earns money off of a commission. So let's say we've got a $300,000 sales price, and we've got we'll say a 6% commission, and a 6% commission on a $300,000 sale price is $18,000. But then you're probably splitting that with another broker. If you're representing just one side of the sale, you're splitting that with another brokerage, so that $18,000 becomes $9,000. And then let's say that you've got a split with your broker. You've got a split with your broker of, let's say, 80-20. How about that, 80-20? So 80-20, that ends up being $1,800 going to your broker, where you walking away with 80% of that. That would be what, $7,200. So first things first, just doing that math, which if you already took the pre-licensing course, you know how to calculate commission. Sale price times the commission rate with your office split. Now let's run through an alternative scenario here. Let's say if there was not an office split. Let's say that you represent both the seller and the buyer. It's your listing, and you find the buyer. So that takes it where this $18,000 coming in, we're not doing this step here. We're not splitting this between offices. So we just take that $18,000 and multiply that by 80%. So 20% of that would be about $3,600, and that would be how much the broker would end up with there. And we'd end up with $14,400. that you walk away with in your pocket. And that's from one sale. But now there's a lot that kind of factors into this in running a business. This is what you're going to get a check for, but you're probably going to have some expenses. You got expenses right from the get-go to get your real estate license. Then for the MLS, the Association of Realtors, maybe your brokerage charges some sort of desk fee or annual fee or monthly fee or something like that. So this is essential that we could solve this math going forward like this. But what you want to also be able to do is solve this math backwards. And this is really what's going to help you out on the business planning side of things. Rather than just thinking about how much money you're going to make off of a single sale, we want to figure how many sales do we need to hit our income goal. So this is really essential to make this shift of rather than just calculating commission to calculating how many homes you need to sell, or really what is the volume of properties that you need to sell? What is the total sales amount in order for you to earn that commission it is that you desire? And so first things first, you want to establish really one number. One number, and that's your, let's start out with just gross commission income. GCI, or gross commission income. Now this word gross means before expenses. So what income do you want before we factor in any expenses? And it might actually be a little bit easier to really figure out your net income. To figure out, okay, I want to have net income of, let's say, $100,000. That you want $100,000 before all your expenses are taken care of. Now the question here is, well, how much are you going to have in expenses? And, you'll have the things you'll be able to figure out up front for, joining the Association of Realtors, the licensing fees, and that whole type of process. But then you have other expenses that, especially when you're first starting out, you might not be able to plan for. You might have advertising expenses. You're probably going to have advertising expenses at some point, especially when you want to start getting into this territory of $100,000. So let's say rather than $100,000, we'll maybe bite off something that maybe is more attainable. Let's say $70,000 in net income, and then $100,000 in gross commission income. Now this difference here between these two numbers, what is that saying? Well, this is saying that we could allocate for $30,000 in expenses. $30,000 in expenses, which that might be a lot. Maybe we only need $20,000 of expenses. So that would leave us with net income of $80,000. And now this isn't something that you carve in stone on day one before you even get your real estate license, saying this is going to be my expenses, this is going to be my income, this is going to be my gross income, and I need to sell this many houses. This is going to be something that ebbs and flows as your business ebbs and flows. When you're first starting out, when you haven't made any money yet, $20,000 is a ridiculous amount of money for expenses. But when you're consistently bringing in $100,000, $20,000 is a very low amount of expenses, which is why maybe that's $30,000, maybe it's $40,000, maybe it's $50,000. We'll get down to breaking this down, but this is going to be a living calculation, a living document essentially of what you're figuring to be your income and expenses. And sometimes you got to play with these numbers. You won't always be right for the level of income and expenses it is that you're figuring out here. So we'll figure out how to break this down even further and really make this more specific rather than just, guessing like this here. Because you're first starting out, you're not going to have $20,000 of expenses. You might have $1,000 of expenses, really at the most, probably only about $500 for obtaining the license. You go join the Association of Realtors, you're maybe looking at about $1,000, maybe $1,200 to call yourself a realtor and have access to the MLS as well as all the other tools of it. And that, of course, is optional. The Association of Realtors don't want you to think it's optional, but it is actually optional. You don't need to be a realtor to practice real estate, although I will say they do have a lot of tools that really make it our job easier and make it so we could achieve higher levels of income. And so someday you probably will end up joining the Association of Realtors, even if you don't do it right off the bat. But other than that, that's your two expenses that you would have. Maybe you've got something to join your broker. Maybe there's some sort of training fee and post-licensing. So, we'll throw another $500 up here. So we're $2,000 in. Now, $2,000 in expenses probably isn't going to get you to $100,000 in gross commission income or even $80,000. But that should be enough to at least get your first couple of sales coming in. That initial $2,000 investment. And then what you're able to do is you start to make money, you could then reinvest that. So let's say, again, we're going to change gears a little bit here. Let's say that we've got $2,000 as our startup cost. $2,000 as our startup cost, and that is going to be an expense. Can you get me another red marker? This one kind of sucks. So $2,000 in startup cost. Thank you. Let's see if this one's any better. Oh, this one's not much better. We'll make do though. So $2,000 in startup cost, and let's say we close that first deal. Is this a good one? Oh yeah, that's a good one. We'll use that one. So we've got $2,000 in startup cost, and we're going to color code all this up here. So you're $2,000 in the hole, let's say. Maybe that number's less than that. Maybe that number's higher than that. It depends on what you're doing. It depends if you're not joining the Association of Realtors, maybe you're going right into a brokerage office that only operates off of commission splits and that's it. You might be dealing just with $500 or $600 of startup cost and that's it. But we'll say $2,000 because it's better to overestimate your expenses and underestimate your income. And then let's say that we've got that first commission that comes in. Now, just like we did that commission math at the beginning, where I think we ended up with, we'll just call it $8,000 you've got coming in. Or we'll bump it down. Again, underestimating income, overestimate expenses, underestimate income. Let's say it's just $7,000. You know, maybe it's even less than that. But let's just say we've got $7,000 in commission for our first sale. So where are we at right now? We're at $5,000 in net. $5,000 in net proceeds, which is a good place to be. We haven't really invested too much. I mean, with this $2,000 here, I mean, we're allocating for, getting some business cards, maybe just some very basic, really bootstrapping it to start out with. Because you could spend a lot more, a lot quicker, but that's a good conservative number that's overestimated for the essentials, but still not going crazy and wild with all kinds of things that you don't necessarily need, especially just to get your first sale. So you get your first sale, $7,000 in commission, you've got $5,000 here. Now, chances are you probably like to eat food and drink water and these things that you need. You probably got to pay some rent or a mortgage payment or something like that. So as much as I'd like to say this would be great to reinvest this whole $5,000 back into your business, you're probably not in that position. Maybe you are, and that's great if you can, but let's say we're only going to reinvest half of this back into the business. So we take this $5,000, and out of this $5,000, we pay ourselves $2,500. And like I said, if you could put off paying yourself, if you could put this until later that you're going to pay yourself $2,500, or whatever it is, maybe you're only going to pay yourself $1,000, maybe only $2,000. However, you could decrease that number. That'd be great. But let's just say you're going to pay yourself $2,500, and then you've got $2,500 that you reinvest. Now the question is, what should you invest that other $2,500 into here? So we had our $5,000 that came in, we paid ourselves $2,500, maybe less than that. I wouldn't really say to pay yourself more than 50% of this, because if you're not reinvesting in your business, it's going to be more difficult to get that next sale. So maybe you want to invest in a farm area. Now, getting your first sale, really anytime that you start in the real estate business, I always recommend trying to prospect rather than advertise and market, trying to prospect rather than advertise and market. Now, when I say prospect, that means face-to-face conversations or over-the-phone conversations or door knocking or open houses or these things that cost very little money-wise but do cost a lot time-wise, because these are a lot better to start out with rather than just going straight into advertising. Because when you go straight into advertising, you take for granted how much you just invested for each one of those clients, and you really don't know what you're doing fully yet. So that's why prospecting is always a good way to start out. But at some point, you're going to want to start to market and advertise, because the prospecting side of things, the time investment, that's going to run out very quickly. As you start to make more money, you're going to realize how little time it is that you have and how you'll have to leverage your money to buy time. And this allows you to show up in everybody's mailbox or in everybody's newsfeed or whatever it is that you're doing. So let's say you're going to reinvest in a farm area. And we've done episodes before on picking a farm area, on choosing an area that you want to market and advertise to. So check those out before you start advertising, because there's a lot of ways to make a mistake with advertising and marketing and to just blow this $2,500. You're better off paying yourself this $2,500 rather than going into marketing and advertising not knowing what you're doing, because at least you'll be able to reap some of the benefits, whereas it's very easy to throw away $2,500 in the blink of an eye if you're advertising incorrectly, let's say. But let's say that we're smart about how we're reinvesting this money. We're targeting it towards a farm area. Now, you're still probably going to have to rely on prospecting to get these sales, because that's the other thing with advertising and marketing, is we might have to make this $2,500 really span out a year. That's a good, we'll say 10 months. We'll say 10 months, that we've got to invest at least 10 months here. And so out of this $2,500, if we take this and divide it out by 10 months, we've got $250 a month. So now that's a much smaller budget that we're working with here. That we're allocating this $2,500 to reinvest in advertising and growing our business, but only at a rate of $250 a month. And so that's again why you want to still rely on the prospecting side, the face-to-face, the open houses, the door knocking, the cold calling, whatever it is that you're doing that basically cost you no money, but will cost you your time, that will cost you confidence. You'll have to have confidence in order to do these more face-to-face direct things, but these are really great, for lack of a better term, character builders when you're first starting your real estate business, that's going to make your advertising spend go that much further, because you're going to know how to interact and deal with people because you've had to rely on that, and now you're supplementing this where you're starting to get business from your advertising. But at the very least 10 months, that's a very conservative time span of where you're probably not going to have any business for those first 10 months of advertising. And again, that's why you want to also have the prospecting that you're doing here. So let's say you get your second sale and you get another infusion. We'll use the same number here of $7,000. So now you've got another infusion of $7,000. Now the thing is, we've already recouped our startup cost right from the beginning. This first $7,000 that came in, okay, we're $5,000 net, assuming that maybe we put this $2,000 on a credit card. Well, we've already paid that back, maybe a little interest with it, and then we pay it ourselves, and now we're reinvesting. Now, if you maintain that same rate of pay, if that $2,500 was enough for you, maybe even cut that down a little bit more because you really want to go in all in on your business, and you only pay yourself $2,000. So that leaves us now with $5,000 to really more than double down on our advertising strategy. Maybe we turn up the frequency. So rather than them just getting a postcard once a month, we're able to start sending a postcard every other week, bi-weekly, instead of just once a month. So we're really starting to inundate people with us being the specialist in our farm area. That's what farming and advertising and marketing is all about. It's about really saturating a particular market, not everywhere, not the entire Tampa Bay area or whatever your metro area is, but really isolating down to a neighborhood where you could spend $250. If you're talking about mailers here, if we're just assuming it costs 50 cents per mailer, $250 a month, that's going to hit you at 500 homes just one time a month. But now when we've got $5,000, if we're still using that same rule of 10 here, we divide this out by 10, and now we've got $500. On top of our $250, if we're for however much longer we've got left out of that budget allocated there. So for some time, we could be spending $750 a month. And so again, using that whole idea of 50 cents per impression, whether this is a postcard, whether this is some sort of ad online, or however it is that you're doing it. And these numbers will be different in the real world when we're actually doing them, but let's just assume 50 cents here. Out of $750, that's 1,500 people that you could reach as opposed to just 500. Or maybe you take those same 500 people and now you could hit them 3 different times in a single month rather than just once. And again, develop that saturation where you start to have brand recognition in your target market. Now, a lot of agents starting out in real estate, they're not doing this math. They're just saying, ooh, I'm going to get a $7,000 commission check. Yeah, I'm not going to pay off that credit card where I started this all with. I'm just going to take that $7,000 and I'm going to go buy myself a fast car. Or I'm going to go move into a bigger apartment. I'm going to go use it as a down payment for my house. Or really just paying yourself that whole $7,000. Now, you could see how we really kind of spun this into going from a $250 investment a month to a $750 investment a month once we get that second sale and we're continuing to reinvest ourselves. Because if you took this $5,000 and really you said, okay, well, I'm not going to reinvest in my business. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And I'm just going to pay myself $7,000. Now where are we at net? Net, we're negative $2,000. We still owe that $2,000 that maybe we put on a credit card. And we just went and paid ourselves $7,000, and now we have zero reinvestment in our business. And now that second sale, that's going to take longer to get. And we're really not setting up our future. So let's say, again, we maybe get another sale of $7,000. Now, again, it's probably going to take longer because you're not reinvesting in your business. And then you go in, again, and pay yourself that $7,000. Now, if this was on a credit card or something like that, this interest is building up. This is costing more and more every single day. And you're not doing anything to build your business in front of you. And so what happens here is you could probably continue to prospect, maybe doing open houses, door knocking, cold calling. If you like that, great, but it's not a way to scale your business. It's not a way to get to that $100,000 income we're talking about at the beginning. Because even if you're closing one of these, let's say 10 times a year, if you get 10 of these a year that you're able to close, and that's really stretching it to probably the most you're able to do, I would say prospecting. Maybe you're able to do more than that, but that's $70,000. $70,000, and that's really, like I said, putting this pedal to the metal. And that's going to be very difficult to attain when it's solely you working on this here. And maybe you'll have some deals that fall through. You'll have some that don't end up closing. Now, $70,000, that's still a lot of money. But if we are reinvesting and doubling down in what it is that we're doing, if we're advertising consistently to a target farm area, we're going to have business that's coming to us, and we're going to be able to really make the best use of our time and achieve a higher, greater level of income and really start to build something bigger than ourselves. So the whole moral of the story with this here is when you get this commission check, that's not your paycheck. This is one of the differences you have to make between having a job, having a career, and running a business. And that's really what you're doing almost in any sales profession to a certain extent. You're running a business, but especially in real estate, because you have control over being able to reinvest in your business, to invest in marketing, to invest in training, to invest in things that's going to help you become more successful. And you making those investments, yeah, you've got to pay yourself less. I mean, I'm sure you'd rather pay yourself $7,000, but again, these commission checks, they're not your paycheck. It's your revenue that your business is receiving, but then this business has expenses, especially if you're trying to expand it. Now, again, I'm not saying to pay yourself nothing. You pay yourself for covering your expenses, but pay yourself later. Delay that payday to later, so that way you could reinvest now. Because you buying a fast car, buying a bigger house, or renting a bigger apartment, or whatever it is that you're doing, is that going to make you any more money? It's not. And don't try to sell yourself on that whole thing of, oh, well, I got to have a good image. If I want people to trust me, what do they want? Their realtor showing up in a Honda Civic, or do they want them showing up in a Ferrari? I mean, really neither one of those, but ultimately that Honda Civic shows that, okay, this is somebody who's not flash. You show up in a Lamborghini or Ferrari or some sort of fancy sports car, they're thinking, oh man, this person's overpaid. So that Honda Civic probably is a better way to show up to an appointment rather than, some big fancy car. And, the whole thing of, oh, well, I've got to get a car that seats enough people. You've got to look at the decisions that you're making and the expenses that you're outlaying here. Have reliable transportation, of course. You're going to need reliable transportation to be able to get to and from appointments, but you don't need to have people in your car. Don't use that as an excuse to buy a bigger car that seats more people so you can have people in your car. You don't need to have people in your car. You just tell them, okay, these are the places we're going to go. You follow me. There you go. That's it. Now, yes, we could get really nitty-gritty about that, but that alone should not be the reason why you're investing in a larger vehicle, especially when you have so many other ways that your money can be spent. So think of this. Are you either paying yourself or are you reinvesting in your business? And you've got to look at this from the standpoint of not this would be cool, this is something that I want. And it's really hard to separate what it is that you want versus what it is that your business needs. To make that separation, because what you want, that's a very emotional thing. But then when you look at it from a very logical standpoint of, is this the best way for me to be spending my money in my business? A lot of times the answer doesn't align with something that's ultimately paying you. A car, a boat, a jet ski, or whatever these toys are, they're exactly that. They're toys. They're not tools. You want to invest in tools, in advertising, in training, in things that's going to grow your real estate business beyond what it is that you can imagine, and then you could buy all the toys it is that you want. Look, we're going to take a quick commercial break, but stick with us. We've got more money math to cover today. My name is John Chrismo. You're watching Ask the Instructor.
The most powerful tool to study for your real estate exam is the Question Simulator from Tampa School of Real Estate. We've used our years of experience in preparing students for the Florida real estate exam to bring you the most powerful exam study tool available. In the Question Simulator, you'll be able to go directly to a particular unit so you can focus on the sections where you need the most practice. We have also included the percentages of each unit so you know which units are the most important for your real estate exam. Every question will immediately give you detailed feedback, which is almost always more important than the question or the answer themselves. After completing all the questions in a particular unit, you can go through question by question and review any that you've gotten wrong. You could also print out a report at the end of each quiz. The Question Simulator from Tampa School of Real Estate is 100% mobile compatible, so you can practice with test questions anywhere you have your phone with you. Enroll now at questionsimulator.com and get ready to pass your exam.
Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. My name is John Chrismo with the Tampa School of Real Estate, and today we're talking about money math. And we're just talking about simple addition and subtraction here, and this has really just been a practice. It's not really math that we're doing. Yes, we're doing a computation, but it's allocating your funds in the appropriate places. I know you want to look at that commission check and say, wow, look at this awesome paycheck, but it's not a paycheck because you've got these other expenses here. But if you do want to grow your paycheck, you take that commission check and you reinvest it in your business, in advertising and marketing. And really, before you do that, you want training on how to advertise and market appropriately, because there's ultimately two ways it is that you could advertise. You could either advertise yourself or you could pay somebody else to advertise for you. Now, if you don't know what you're doing, you're probably better off paying somebody to advertise for you. But when you're paying somebody else to advertise for you, let's say Zillow calls you up and Zillow says, hey, for $500 a month, you'll get X amount of leads. Now, for that number of leads, if you're spending the money advertising and marketing, you're probably going to get a better return on investment if you're the one doing the marketing and you're controlling that process. And not only that, but you'll get better quality leads as well for a fraction of the price as you're paying for a retail cost of these leads, where you're paying somebody else to generate these leads for you. Now, it is a way, again, you could advertise, but now Zillow is in control, or whoever it is, whether it's Realtor.com or Zillow or Truly or whatever website it is that you're advertising on, they're in control of how many leads they send you and how many people they show you to. Whereas when you're in control of the advertising, you're building out your own landing pages and funnels, and you're setting up Facebook and Google ads and all that other stuff, and you're combining that with old-fashioned print marketing techniques like postcards or letters or newsletters, flyers, that type of thing. You're holding open houses in a farm area. Which one of those do you think is going to be more effective for your long-term business? Is it going to be just giving Zillow money every single month to generate leads for you, or is it going to be you establishing a presence in a market through every channel possible? And maybe that does involve you showing up on Zillow. But I would make that lower down on the list, just because the cost per lead it is that you're going to get is going to be very high, and these are going to be low quality because they're not sold on you, they're sold on Zillow. You're just somebody that Zillow is handing them off to. So look, it is a way to get leads, but there's much better return on investment out there to be achieved. So going back to the whole advertising debate of things of should you just pay somebody else or should you do it yourself? Now, all those things I talked about, having landing pages, setting up Facebook ads, Google ads, that's a lot of work. So, maybe it is worth it to just pay one of these other places for it. Or maybe you do want to take on that greater challenge of being able to establish a brand presence in your farm area, but you want to know how to do it effectively and in the correct way. And that's where training's coming in. That's where you're training on how to use Facebook ads, how to use Google ads, how to really tie all this together into a farming strategy that works, that generates you business, that generates you leads, where people they're not just a cold lead that you've never talked to them before, they don't know who you are. They're somebody who's already sold on you before they even pick up the phone and contact you. And they're the ones chasing after you rather than you chasing after them. And that's absolutely possible when advertising and marketing is done correctly. But again, this isn't something you want to jump into right at the beginning. You want to rely more so on the prospecting, the holding open houses, of getting some listings. There's really so much it is, but really moral of today's story with all this doing the money math, it's figuring out, okay, how much are you going to make off of each sale? And now really let's ramp up to being able to have sales more frequently. So let's say if you're relying solely on prospecting, maybe holding open houses and going door to door, maybe doing a little cold calling, and you're doing this to some level that's generating you some success. And let's say your average commission after your brokerage split and everything is $7,000. Now, if you get 5 sales, that's only $35,000. Which is a decent amount of money. It's a good place to start out at. But especially you start factoring in expenses. Now, again, if you're bootstrapping this with a bootstrap budget and you're only having those $2,000 in startup costs, let's say it is $2,000 in the annual expenses for the getting the license for realtors, for your brokerage, and so on and so forth, then you're left with $33,000. So you take out the $2,000 from this in expenses, and you're at $33,000. Does that sound like a lot of money? I hope it doesn't. If it does, great. That'll get you to a great start, but you're probably not getting a real estate license to make $33,000 in a year. You probably want to make more than that. And that's 5 sales, so roughly about 1 every other month, which when you're relying on prospecting, that's even a lot of business to be had. But let's say you start to really double down on this, to reinvest in your business. So let's say out of this $35,000 that you're going to pay yourself very little of this. And ultimately your goal is to get to that same $7,000, but now get to 10 sales. And at 10 sales, that's $70,000 in gross commission income. But now let's say you've got some expenses associated with this. And again, this isn't expenses that you input right from the beginning. You've got your $2,000 of expenses right from the beginning. But then let's say you've got another $18,000. You start to advertise and market a little bit, and now you're spending $18,000 across a year. So here we've got $20,000 in expenses, and now you're at $50,000. Now, if I were to ask you, and this is where you've got to really shift your focus. If I were to ask you, would you rather have $2,000 in expenses or would you rather have $20,000 in expenses, which one would you choose? If you're only looking at the expenses, if you're only looking at what's in red up here, which would you choose? Would you choose to have $2,000 or $20,000 in expenses of money coming out of your pocket? Now, if we're only looking at expenses, you're probably saying, no, I only want to spend $2,000. But if I were to ask you instead, would you rather make $33,000 or would you rather make $50,000? You'd probably pick the $50,000. And why would you pick that? Because it's more money. But now that's coming at a higher cost. You still have that same startup expense we're assuming here, but then you started advertising and marketing and really doubling down and investing in your business. You're training on how to do this correctly, on how to follow up with leads, and that investment in your business, it's not a huge amount more. It's not, to go from $2,000 to $20,000, you're having 10 times the amount of expenses, and you're not getting 10 times the amount of income, but notice how we've made that increase here. And then if we continue to increase this, let's say now we get to 20 sales. We get to 20 sales, which leaves us now at $140,000 of our gross commission income. $140,000, wow, that's great. But now, just like our same rule of thumb, we're not gonna have 100% profit. We're not going to be able to keep it all. So let's say that now we're up to $50,000 in expenses, maybe even $60,000. Let's say we've got $60,000 in expenses. Now, when we do the math, when we do this money math, very simple subtraction here, it's just really understanding what these numbers mean. We're left with $80,000. So if I were to ask you, would you rather have $50,000 in income or $80,000 in income, which would you choose? You'd probably choose the $80,000, right? But if I were to ask you, would you rather have $2,000 in expenses or $20,000 in expenses or $60,000 in expenses? If we're only looking at the expenses, you'd pick the smallest amount. And the expenses are not the most important part of your business. Because as you grow, as you scale, as you increase the size of your business, and at this point here, you might be having to bring on an administrative assistant to help you with this, and maybe there's a small salary in here out of that $60,000 that you're spending. But now you're walking away with $30,000 more in your pocket. And notice how when I'm throwing these numbers up here, it's not proportional. We went to spending 3 times. We went from spending 10 times as much, from just $2,000 to $20,000, and then from $20,000 to $60,000, spending 3 times as much, and we're still not getting that 3 times. We're not getting $150,000, but when you look at our overall gross commission income, we're getting pretty close to that. So you're not going to have this much expenses from the get-go. You don't need to have $60,000 to invest. You probably don't even need $2,000 to get started in real estate. To get the license, it's probably going to cost you about $500-$600 to go through the licensing process and obtain the real estate license. Again, we're just using conservative estimates here of overestimating our expenses and underestimating your income. Whenever you're doing this money math, you always want to remember those 2 rules. Number 1, for your expenses, overestimate your expenses. Overestimate how much it is that you're going to have to spend, and underestimate how much it is that you're going to make. And worst case scenario, you just make more money than you planned for. That's what happens when you overestimate your expenses and underestimate your income. That's a much better situation to be in than the reverse of that, where you underestimated how much money it's going to cost you and you overestimated how much money it is that you'll make. But through careful planning of this, and again, you're just making that initial investment to get started, but then as you're growing, you're reinvesting in yourself first and foremost. You're growing yourself, and then by proxy, you're also growing your business. You invest in yourself so you know what you're doing. You know that you could turn these leads into sales. You know that you're doing that and how to do that correctly and effectively, but now you're also investing in expanding your business further. And it's the whole idea of learning to walk before you could run. Before you're able to get to this point of having $60,000 in expenses, because if you went right into this with $60,000 in expenses and you only made $60,000 in gross commission income, you don't want to be in that situation, because this number here would be 0, not $80,000. So this is something that you grow into, and the speed at which you do it is going to depend on if you have the right information and you're operating on that right information, that you know what you're doing, that you have the right info, that you know the appropriate things. So many businesses, they get hung up on the red here. They get hung up on, okay, these are expenses, let's see if we can minimize these expenses. And to a certain extent, you don't want to spend money in non-profitable ways and non-efficient ways. Yes, I agree with that, but what's ultimately more important is getting more money coming in the first place. And if that comes at a higher cost, as long as you're walking away with more money in your pocket, it's a win. So This is going to be something, again, not something that you just plan out in advance. No matter how much planning that you do, there's always going to be slight deviations and variations and maybe even complete changes from what you initially planned. And that's why this is a living thing that you're doing constantly, that you're recalculating. Okay, I've got this much money. Well, let's allocate this much money here and I'll only pay myself this much. And you're doing that so you have that greater, bigger payday as you grow your business. So look, that's about all the time it is that we've got for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, make sure you hit that little bell icon so whenever we go live or we drop any videos, you get a notification. You don't miss out on any of this information we deliver to you every single day. So hit that bell icon so you don't miss out on that. If you've got questions about obtaining your real estate license, maybe you've got to do the post-licensing course. Maybe you're trying to take your real estate business to the next level. Maybe that means starting a brokerage for you. Maybe you're just trying to learn the sales side or the marketing side a little bit better. We could help you out. Give us a call, 813-333-2676. Again, that's 813-333-2676. We've got advisors standing by to answer any questions you have and assist you in any way that they can. Again, that's about all the time we've got for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hit that like button, hit the bell icon, and I'll see you on Friday for State of Real Estate. Hey, so if you're thinking about starting a real estate career, it could feel a little overwhelming sometimes. Look, that's completely understandable. That's why we're here to help. If you haven't already, check out our Success Center, tampaschool.com/success, or if you don't even know where to begin, give us a call. We'd love to help you out. We've got advisors standing by to answer any questions you have and assist you in any way it is that we can. Our phone number is 813-928-0106. Again, that's 813-928-0106. Give us a call. We're the Tampa School of Real Estate.
Do you want a career that allows you to be in control? With a career in real estate, you'll get to call the shots. Whether you're looking at starting part-time or want to become the next top agent, a career in real estate makes it possible. Find out what it takes at tampaschool.com. Do you want to incorporate studying for your real estate exams into your busy schedule? Now you can review the key topics you need to know to pass your class and state exams with our MP3 audio review. Simply pop in your headphones or connect to your car to reinforce crucial information while you exercise or drive. Listen to the first unit for free at mp3audioreview.com. That's mp3audioreview.com.
Are you thinking about a career in real estate? Hey, I'm John Chrisma with the Tampa School of Real Estate, and we've helped thousands of people just like you obtain their real estate license. If you're thinking about a career in real estate, give us a call. The phone number is 813-928-0106. Our advisors are standing by to answer any questions you have and assist you in any way they can. Hey, if you're enjoying the show today, which I'm sure you are, be sure to hit like, subscribe, post your comments, share with your friends and family. Thank you guys so much for watching.